The president of Liberia once said, "If you educate a man, you educate a family and a village. To educate a woman, you empower a nation." So in 2009 we started. It was myself, Don, and Jason, video camera, a bumpy taxi ride, and 30 girls in an outdoor classroom in Gambia where we started the literacy and empowerment program. Then we tried again in 2011 and we worked with another school with a partnership there. It grew to about 40 girls at that point. But in 2013 was really the birth of the work that we're deep ingrained in right now, which included the year-long mentor program for girls and also taking those girls on the travel seminar, stopping in Morocco, and then we went to the Gambia to do a week-long conference with young women there, and we had partnered with schools as well on the ground. And now we come back up to, 2016. We went to Amsterdam, the Netherlands, took another group of girls. It was a group of 10. And then we also went to Tanzania and partnered with an orphanage, did a multiple-day conference where our girls went to school with the Tanzanian girls in the morning and we had our conference in the afternoon. We lived alongside them for the week that we were visiting there. And now here we are in 2018 on the eve of a decade of Women Empowering Nations, working with 60 young women from 3 different schools in Ghana. We brought over girls from the United States, and we've also ramped up the amount of mentors who are coming. It's an experience not just for young girls, but also for young adult women who want to be a part of this path to change alongside us. So we call these experiences a travel seminar because it is much more than just a trip. We take our young women and want for them to be immersed in the culture, being able to have tangible experiences of not only building relationships beyond borders, but also digging into the history, learning more about themselves, their ancestors, and connecting with learning opportunities that transform their view of the world around them. We visited President Kwame's museum, where we got to learn more about his story and his journey in leadership, and also his heart for Pan-Africanism.
So among the things he said on that day was that, quote, "the independence of Ghana would be meaningless unless it was linked with the total liberation of the African continent, and that it was time to prove to the whole world that given the same opportunity, the black man was also capable of managing his own affairs."
It was cool to just see his casket, and it was cool to like the first president of Ghana casket right there.
I think it's cool how important he is to them and how they treasure him in his life.
It's actually a bronze statue of him molded in Italy, and his posture is expressing the political slogan, "Forward ever, backwards never."
We took a visit to the W.B. Du Bois Museum, where we saw his home when he moved to Ghana from the United States. And it was interesting as we walked through the home and learned more about his work and his accomplishments and education.
I knew he was a writer, but I never knew how he was an activist and stuff like that.
I always say that Dr. Du Bois made one statement about life. He said, life is long. Life is long because when you die, depending on how much life you've changed, your name will be mentioned and you are alive here in the people's hearts. And so even if you are dead, you are still alive.
I would say that during this almost decade of leading Women Empowering Nations, the most transformational moments happen not just with our African girls, but also our girls in the United States, when we break past the stereotypical barrier of what we're allowed, able, or capable to do as women.
I believe that we can also cause change, just like how the men are also causing change.
Good morning. You can get a bag in your name.
I'm excited. The girls are slowly rolling in. We are prepared to talk about global awareness today and hopefully empower young women.
I'm so happy to see all of your faces, and thank you so much for joining us today for the Girls Leading Our World Conference. So today we're focusing on global awareness. We're going to learn a bit about the world around us, and then we're going to focus in on ourselves and getting to know the other women in the room. We start off our day in the conference with the World of 100. The girls are separated into several groups. The groups represent countries around the world that have more resources at times than others. And those resources are represented by chairs, by paper. Food resources are represented by crackers and by candy. It's a physical representation and simulation of what happens on the day-to-day basis in our world.
It was weird because when we split up into the groups, I thought like things were going to be even, but I could recognize which group that which group my country was.
We've learned today how the world is, but I want to remind you that nobody knows how the world will work when you are adults. There are many things you can do to improve the state of our world. If you think globally and act locally, you'll not only be an active citizen, but together we'll invent a better future for our world. At the conclusion, we split them up into groups, and they came up with plans of what they would target and focus on to change the world around them based upon what they learned in the World of 100.
And one person once said, "A parent can give everyone anything, but the greatest inheritance is education."
Even if we have little resources, we can improve on those resources to meet our basic needs.
So in Ghana, we want to educate our own people, get these skilled people so that we'll be able to produce the things that we need in Ghana.
This activity generally stirs a lot of emotions, a lot of ideas, and really for us, it's a time that we put the girls in the position to be change agents and change makers. To create a space where girls can share their fears, their insecurities, and their dreams, we first must build relationships. And in the activities of If You Really Knew Me and Cross the Line, when I call out something that is true for you, you will cross the line. The intent was for them to be able to share more and more about themselves. If You Really Knew Me is an activity where young ladies get to have the opportunity to partake in 3 rounds. In the first round, they share something that most people might know about them. In the second round, they go a little bit deeper. And in the third round, they're sharing a fact about themselves that mainly their closest friends know. It's giving them the opportunity to peel back the layers of who they are, to share who they really are if we knew them.
I wasn't expecting them to actually say something that everybody didn't know. I was expecting them to just keep it simple and keep it pushing.
It just made me have a heart for them.
It don't matter who you are, where you're from, everybody goes through stuff and everybody has problems in life.
You would say something like, if you're truly close to me, you probably know that I'm this and that. It really made me know something I didn't even think of. So I think it helps girls to know more about themselves, to help them become something better.
At times we find that the young women we've worked with have never had the opportunity to tell their own story. With the life maps, we gave them the opportunity to tell us the highs, the lows, that have culminated together to make them who they are.
So this is my life map. This is me. Don't mind the join. This is me. Then this is me when I went to school. I'm still in school though. This is when I realized I have a career in acting. So I started acting, I joined the drama club. And this is me when I started my own business. So I own a little bit business. Then it moved on to me getting robbed. I got robbed at a time in my life where I had a gun pointed to my head and it affected me a lot. Later I got dance, which is the last thing in my life map. And it helped me get through it. I danced my way through a lot of things. It helped me get out of my comfort zone, leave that little corner I built, this world of my own of misery and sadness, into a world where I felt joy still existed. Pretty much, yeah, that's my life.
During day 1, we focused a lot on the girls telling their own story, finding their voice, talking about who they are, deep down inside, what their hopes and dreams are. So on day 2, we had some of our mentors as well as one of our local representatives talk to the girls about leadership. So Ashley, we'll start with you. How do you define leadership?
So how I define leadership is having the ability to influence others in a positive way for positive outcomes.
Being a leader, you shouldn't be bossy. You should lead by example.
So tell me a little bit about who mentored you, if anyone, and why do you feel like that experience was important?
So one of my first mentors was actually my aunt and my family. She went to college to be an engineer, and she inspired me through her journey to be an engineer.
One of my strongest mentors was one that forced me to dream bigger than my personal dreams. Like, I would kind of put down these small goals, and she pushed me to go really big.
All right, so thank you guys so much. So now we'll open it up for the next 10 minutes for questions from the girls. Is there anyone right away that has a question? Come on up to the mic.
If you are someone is having a messed up life and the person has the potential of being a leader, how do you inspire the person to be a leader?
It's really going back to the basic fundamentals of encouraging people that they do have value, that they can contribute, that even if you've made a mistake and you're in a situation today, it doesn't have to stay this way.
Do I need a mentor to become a good leader?
Do you need a mentor to become a leader? I don't think you do. I think there are lots of resources out there that will help you, such as books and school. But I think to become a very strong leader, I would recommend having a mentor. There's nothing that compares to when your back is against the wall, you're having a really bad day, getting on the phone and calling someone.
Well, I want to thank you ladies for your time, your wisdom, and your insight today. Let's give them a round of applause. As we culminated, I really reflected just upon the journey of the organization and the space that we had gotten to with these young ladies in just a couple of days. This is year 9, we're about to be a decade in the game. It's hard to say, I feel really old, but I still feel the same butterflies standing at the door greeting girls as I did in Van Jewel in 2009. And it's just a true connection to purpose. And so the opportunities to see purpose light up in the eyes of our girls, or even in the work with our mentors, for them to define a piece of why they exist is to serve in this space, is the reason why we continue to persist.
They're soft-spoken at times. They have really great ideas and they have really great opinions. And when you kind of encourage them a little bit more to share their opinions and share their ideas, they will and they'll speak up.
I was first the shy type, and if I want to be a leader, I would have to come out and then be outspoken too, so they've really helped me.
Women should be leaders because there's a saying that when you educate a man, you educate an individual, but when you educate a woman, you educate a whole.
And I think that the piece that's really stood out to me the most and what is pulled on my heart is watching girls speak and elevate their voice.
I could speak for the people who don't have a voice. I could be me without being scared. I could give my views without caring what boys think, because I know it's me.
Today has really touched me in ways that I didn't even anticipate as I was thinking about the problem tree.
You all would choose one of these root causes to create a campaign around.
So for them to see it, that's great, but then what do we want them to do? Because now we're talking about action. What's the action we want them to take?
With the problem tree, I'll be able to use that same example or that same sample to identify problems in the community and solve them.
It's very inspiring, and I'm very happy that most of the girls enjoy themselves. They are happy to be part of this conference.
And so when I think about not just the exposure that's provided to our African American girls, but even the Ghanaian girls, the Gambian girls, the Tanzanian girls, it's not about that we're coming as African Americans or we're representatives from the States. It's really about exposing them to their potential, who they are, who they can be, what they've been told versus what is possible for them in their lives, and believing that exposure expands expectations internationally, not just in the States, not just here in Ghana, but all over the world. And we want to persist to continue to be that change and to be that voice, inspiring other girls to lift theirs. Every travel seminar, we talk about the importance of education. And oftentimes we're bringing girls from urban communities, and we want for them to experience education in a developing country, to have the chance to spend time at school for a day and to understand what the education process looks like abroad. And so the school visit is always one of my favorite times as an educator, to immerse them even deeper into the experiences in Ghana.
It was different because when the teacher walked in the classroom, they all stood up and they couldn't really sit down till the teacher told them to sit down. That was interesting. I saw how the programs that they had were similar and different to my school.
So teachers come to you?
Yes.
So you all stay in the same class throughout the whole day?
Yeah.
When we mix cultures, it will help our children also to know more things about other world that is going on there. And so you come in, it's a great privilege because they learn a lot from you guys. And today they're also going to make a move, and one day they'll also be visiting you.
Seriously, they are happy in the game. They are happy in the game.
So then we traveled to Elmina, where we got to see another part of the beautiful country of Ghana. We went to the rainforest, this is one of our stops that day, where we had the opportunity to walk across this huge bridge in the middle of the rainforest.
Felicia, which way are you going?
The short way. Bye. I personally accompanied the girls on the shorter route to make sure they made it safely.
We're about 250 meters off of the ground, so no big deal.
It's great, very liberating, a little shaky, so you gotta really be confident in yourself and in your own skills, but after you get through the first one, the second one, you're already done, so.
A large part of us traveling to Elmina was to visit the slave castle. And at this stop, we learned a lot about the transatlantic slave trade.
I welcome you to St. George's Castle. This is the oldest and the largest in the world. When the Portuguese and the Dutch came over here to trade, sadly, most of them never came with their wives or their women. Why? They were dying of malaria and yellow fever, to the extent the coastal line was even termed to be the white man's grave. Now, when they got in here, they could not stay without them. So governors, soldiers, traders kept on abusing the women sexually in the dungeons. Whenever the governor wanted, because of his position, he stood up on the balcony. He ordered the women out and made his choice. The lady chosen could have stayed in the dungeons for a whole month, never cleaned her teeth, never took a bath or bathe, gone through menses sometimes, and still the governor wanted. So the soldiers had the responsibility of making sure this woman was washed. How did they do it? They fetched water from the tank or the cistern. This was actually built by the Portuguese. And when the Dutch came, they abandoned this and had a bigger one built in the main courtyard. But when the same Dutch governor who was thinking this could be poison picked a lady to be used, then the water to him poison became good enough to clean the woman. So they fetched water from here. They washed the lady at the center of the courtyard. Women from the dungeons looked on. After the humiliation, she was dressed up, given something to eat at least to be strong. Then up on these stairs, we call it private access to the governor's bedroom. The chosen woman was taken to the governor. See the private access. Where we are is said to be the largest of the dungeons for the ladies. And here you're talking of 100 to 150 people in this small space. You look at the floor, as hard as it is, they were packed or were sleeping. They were given food and water once, twice a day, a very little just to keep them alive. A month or two, they were held in here and mostly allowed out when the governor was going to pick one to be used. Now here also, they were not allowed to wash down. And women had to go through their menstrual issues and still be sleeping in it.
When I think about strength and the ability to overcome and to continue to persist, I was just filled up with sadness and pride and disappointment in the fact that this ever happened in my lineage, in my history, not just as a Black woman, but as a human being.
I saw a lot of stuff about like slave castles and forts and movies, and I read about a lot of stuff, but actually being there and having that experience, it was really eye-opening.
I was just thinking like what they really went through and how they were being treated back then, and it made me sad.
We call this place the room of no return. In times of war, a whole family could be taken, brought in here, they were separated. Women were up here, men were down there. All the time in the dungeons, they never saw each other. Most never saw each other again, and that was the end. When this evil trade started, they narrowed the exit to what you can see for nobody to escape, one person at a time. In the end, they made up their minds to go through the shame, the pain, the degradation, so they could tell the story. So here you keep a minute of silence in their memory. And after that, you'll be bold enough to say never again. Again, I tell people, don't just say some words, but make a vow in you to do the little you can do in your own small way, making sure this evil will never again be repeated. A minute of silence, please.
I've been to slave castles in West Africa, from Gorée Island to James Island in the Gambia. And oftentimes when I've been to these slave castles, they've deteriorated in some ways, but here at Elmina, seeing it still be constructed, I felt like my ancestors were there. And the emotions that I felt in the room of no return couldn't compare to anything that I felt before.
And I'll say never again. Never again, never again. Now you can now fit into the exit. One person at a time. After having a look, just follow me out.
There was just this feeling of gratitude for those who've gone before me, of connectedness to my history. It was just such a powerful experience to be right there in the space where these things occurred, and to know that I have become the hope and the dream of my ancestors.
I feel like I'm my ancestors' biggest dream because they never got to do the things that I do. They never got to travel to different countries. They never got to get an education like I am. So that's what I think about it, because I'm basically living a life that they couldn't. It makes me feel like they're proud of me.
So whatever we do today has a bearing on tomorrow. And what exactly we want tomorrow to be, we need to act it now. My name is Ato, and that's the end of the tour. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
If we don't learn our history and if we don't go back to where we came from, then we won't grow. So if you want to see change, you have to be that change.
And that's why we persist. We know that when we can take a girl and expose her to opportunities to travel, to herself, to her history, that we are literally unlocking levers and doors and dreams and hopes that could transform generations to come.
Without them, I wouldn't be exposed to this type of stuff. I would just be at home.
I think I grew because I feel like I have a newfound confidence, and I feel like I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna change like the way that I live and the stuff that I do.
We dream and hope that this organization is one that has built leaders who in turn will eventually become mentors.
The next trip, I will be 18, so that will be my last time as an actual member, but after that, I would love to be a mentor.
They will be the ones coming back to lead the sessions. They will be the ones advocating on what comes next in our organization for generations to come, raising the bar, the expectation, and providing the exposure to create pathways to a world where women of color in leadership become the norm. It's just been an honor to lead in this space, to look back over these past almost 10 years, and to look forward at what the future holds. Serving girls from middle school through the trajectory of their life as women, completing this circle and allowing for their young girls to grow up in a home where they know that they are more than enough, that they have a voice, and that they can